Video is going to add a little bit to what we covered in the first section. In the first section, we learned a lot about ratios and writing ratios and finding equal ratios. This one is going to be dealing with those equal ratios, but doing something really specific with them. The big vocabulary term from this one is going to be unit rates, and we're going to cover that in the third slide, but that's the big topic I want you to remember as we go through this section. So the first thing I want to do is just review what equivalent ratios means. So if we break these two words down, equivalent means equal, and then ratios, they are a lot of different things, but the most common description of a ratio is just a fraction. So if we are asking for, give us 3 equivalent ratios, then we are just asking for 3 equal fractions. If we look at the top fraction, we currently have 2/3. In order to find equivalent ratios, we need to find a number that we can multiply the numerator and denominator by to make a fraction that is equivalent to the fraction we started with. So for example, if I multiplied the numerator and denominator by 2, I would get the fraction 4/6. From here, we can continue this process however we want. For example, we could multiply the numerator and denominator by 3 to get 12/18. We could also then multiply this number by 2 to get 24/36. So now what I'd like you to do is do these two fractions down here on the bottom on your own and see if you're able to find 3 equivalent ratios. For this one, actually, I am going to try to simplify the fraction first. Because these numbers are both even, I can divide them both by 3, and I would get 3/4. From here, I can find other equivalent fractions like 9/12, or I could multiply both of these numbers by 4 to get 12/16. I could also get 15/20, and so on. There are tons of options here. For this bottom fraction, I'm also going to simplify. These numbers can both be divided by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And once again, I can find a ton of different equivalent fractions here. And these are just a few of the options. But if you're still struggling with this concept, make sure you talk to me because we are going to be using equivalent ratios in pretty much everything we do for the rest of this unit. So we move to our new topic, which is a unit rate. Now, before we talk about unit rates, I want to really emphasize the word per. Just like the fraction bar, most often per will mean division of some kind. Now, also because division and multiplication are the same operations in reverse, if we are talking about division, we are frequently also talking about multiplication as well. But most often, when you see the word per, something like miles per hour, dollars per day, somewhere in that process, we are doing some type of division. If you bring me this note here in your notebook written down, I will give you 5 SPs or 1 piece of candy. Now, a unit rate is a special type of ratio. So it's a ratio where we compare, and this is the really big part of this note, we compare one of some value to another. And the most important part of a unit rate is that we are comparing one of some value to another value, specifically 1. And now if you bring me this sentence in your notes, I will also give you another piece of candy or 5 SPs. So when we look at this situation, if I drive in a car for 150 miles in 3 hours, What is my unit rate? Well, I know the rate 150 miles in 3 hours. That is a rate, or a ratio if I write it as 150 miles over 3 hours. But when we want a unit rate, we want miles per 1 hour. In this case, 1 hour is our denominator, and that would be our unit rate. So what we simply do is we know that 3 divided by 3 gave us our 1. So if we do 150 divided by 3, that will give us the numerator of our ratio. Well, 5 groups of 3 is equal to 15. So it should be 50 miles in 1 hour. Now, here's the nice thing about unit rate and per. These two things are mixed together. Most of the time, we are going to write 50 miles per hour. This is the form that a unit rate is most often written in. Miles per hour, baskets per day, dollars per cup, things like that. So for these 3 problems, we want to write these as unit rates. So we want one of something. Now, you have a lot of options when you're dealing with unit rates. For example, if I want to write this as 6 cups per 24 cupcakes, that's going to be a different rate than if I wrote cupcakes per cup. When you are working with unit rates, make sure that you say them out loud to yourself. For this example, cups per cupcake is a little bit tricky to understand if you would rather do cups divided by cupcakes or cupcakes divided by cups. Either way will be fine. There are some problems later that it's going to be more obvious what our numerator should be. But either way, if I divide both of these numbers by 6, I would get the unit rate as 1 cup per 4 cupcakes. Or I could write this as 4 cupcakes per 1 cup. Both of those would be correct. And there's actually another way that I could write this. If I divided both of these numbers by 4 again, I would get 1 cupcake is the same as 1/4 of a cup, or I would write this as 1/4 of a cup.